Okay, graphing functions, domain, range, max, min, and intercepts. Domain. So the domain is your set of all input values, also known to us often as our x values. So if you have a set, you can just read the x's. If you have an equation, so for equations that are functions, of course, it is typically all real numbers except we cannot have no division by 0 and no square root, sorry about the writing there, of negatives, because that would create imaginary numbers. And then your range essentially is whatever comes out after you put those numbers in. So the set of all output values or y values. So I have here a little note about looking at the graph. In our course there's an applet so you can see visually. So if you have a point, just a single point, blue here on the x-axis, that is your input or domain, and that is your range. 5 there is your range. So I have a line segment. You're going to drag, and all the blue values are my domain, and the red is my range. So you can see domain goes -2 to 6, and range is -3 to 3. And then they have different shapes here for us. So you can imagine if this goes on and on forever, like a true parabola, sorry I didn't stop there, that you would have a range going from 0 all the way to infinity, and the domain would go negative to positive infinity, or all real numbers, if this were a full size parabola. So we'll get back to it. So find the domain and range. So in this first example, you're just going to list all the x values for your domain, the inputs. And your range is then all the outputs. So 3, 6, 5, 9. We call that finite. It starts, it ends, doesn't go on and on forever. For B, you can see that if I put in 0, I would have a division by 0, and you can't have that. So for your domain, looks like you can have everything else. X just cannot equal 0. Now for our range, well, if this were 1 and this were 1, it would equal 0. So our range, I think, is not going to be limited. But just to be sure, oftentimes I like to graph it. X minus, put it in parentheses, and graph it. You can see that graph goes up there, so it doesn't touch 0 here on the x-axis, but it starts then back. And so for range, you're looking at the up and down. There's a value everywhere if I look at this up and down line. So my range is all real numbers and then, you can write that as negative infinity to positive infinity. That's interval notation. You could have this or this, doesn't matter. So looking at this one, now you've got a square root, so you cannot have negative underneath there, and the 9 is being divided by this x, so you also cannot have 0. So what I do is I take out what's underneath the radical. This needs to be bigger than 0. If it was just the radical, it could be equal to 0, but because it's in the denominator and it would be division by 0, it can't be. And then you're going to solve this. So subtract the 4, negative x bigger than -4, multiply by -1. And if you multiply and divide by negative, if you remember this from algebra way back, the sign flips. So x has to be less than 4. This is your domain.
So for C, we have x is less than 4. Now, what I like to do is typically ask myself for the range, can it be negative? Can you have y as negative value? Can it be 0? Can it be positive? Now, as a disclaimer, this does not work all the time. Okay, so you would probably want to graph to double check, but it should work for C and D. So let's try it out. So we have a positive 9 up here, and we take the square root, that has to be positive. So would our range ever be negative? No, because we have a positive divided by a positive number. So our range has to be not equal, it can't be negative. Can it be 0? No, no matter what value you put in here, you're going to have 9 divided by a number. So that will never be 0. Can y be positive? Yes. So you're just going to put like a 3 in here. 9, and then this would be over 1. So it would be positive. That's a positive value. So your y value would be greater than 0. You can graph this, and you could get that as well from that. All right, let's look at D. So the domain, very similar to C, except for now it can this 2x minus 3 square root of it has to be greater than, and it can be equal to 0, because you can take the square root of 0 and it's not in the denominator. So square root both sides. 0 squared is 0. Add the 3 over. We have 2x greater than or equal to 3. Divide by 2. So x is greater than or equal to 3/2 for our domain. So let's do the range the same way as we kind of thought about it in C. So can you have a negative? Whatever you put in for x, as long as it's greater than or equal to 3/2, could a negative come out of it? No, it's going to be a square root of 0 or a positive number. So this will not be negative. Can y equal 0? Yeah, you would put 3/2 in and you get 0. Can y be positive? Yes, because you just put a number greater than 3/2 in. So put in 2. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 is 1. Square root of 1 is a positive number. So this would be y is greater than or equal to 0 for our range.